So the big question is this: how do investors like us who don't have a PhD in finance or millions to start investing, how do we grow our bank accounts to build real savings in retirements and yet still have the time to do what we really love? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. Hey guys, it's John. Welcome to the Stock Market Series podcast. I had this realization today that was just really big, and I wanted to share with you. Ever since, I'd say probably, I don't know, half a decade ago, 4 years ago, something like that, I kind of figured out sort of how I wanted to spend a lot of my time over the next decade sort of working in the field of decentralized asset management and facilitating that with blockchain tech. And I've always kind of known, and starting my first startup, Monera's, in the blockchain space, in the cryptocurrency asset management sort of kind of wishy-washy space. With that company, it's a little bit more revenue-based, a little bit more computer-based, but it still is very heavily involved in asset management. I've always known that I would essentially need to have a broker-dealer entity and a Series 7 license to manage securities, and all the bells and whistles that come along with getting financial regulations to run any kind of asset management. Because I've been doing asset management for years now, but it's always been on like a low-key kind of off-the-books recommendation thing instead of actually having money that I trade for people. And what that does in effect is it limits my ability to help my clients, because just off the top of my head, yesterday there's obviously, if you guys are watching, well, I don't know when I'm going to upload this, but there's obviously just been a ton of crazy stuff happening in the whole electric car space. Recently got into Shell Turtle Acquisition Corp. They managed some micro cap guys. They were doing a SPAC acquisition for them. I got in those guys that I think it was like 10, and then they just went to like 30, and it was insane. And similarly, Tesla over the past couple of months gone from 200 after the crash from 1,000 down to 200, and they just broke 1,000 like 2 weeks or a week ago or something, and then they just like exploded to 1,700. Amazon's at like $3,000 after barely being able to hold like two. And anyway, a lot of stuff's just been exploding. It's been crazy lately. And so Tesla is very highly correlated to NIO, which is kind of like the Chinese equivalent. And because I've been making plays in the electric car space, I knew kind of the valuations were obviously really overvalued right now in a lot of these companies. And it's created a lot of really great opportunities for puts. But what happened yesterday was really cool. NIO has gone from about $2 to basically 14. Which is just insane. It's more than Tesla by a long shot, and it's really, I guess it's actually kind of about the same as Tesla, because they are highly correlated. But anyway, it's just massive, right? So I've been kind of watching for these guys to top and then trying to watch for when to short them, which is going really well so far with Tesla in terms of like day trading puts on them. Has been working really well. And calls, got 10x calls on Friday on the 0 DTEs last week. But anyway, so yesterday at like 8 o'clock, I was running my dark pool screener, and someone sold like $30 million worth of NIO like 8 o'clock. So it printed at 8 o'clock before the market opened, which means they sold it the day before, and it was a late sell print, which means they were hiding it overnight, and they sold at a price that was much higher than what they were at in the pre-market and what they opened at that day. So you can pretty much tell right off the bat someone just dumped like 30 million of NIO. And then like at 9:50 or 10 o'clock or whatever, another two prints come up for NIO, and they're both the same lot amount. It's another 30 million, 40 million, just getting sold at kind of the highs of the morning. And so because I came across, and because there was just so much hype in the electric car space in the market, and with those stocks just going up so quickly, that there's a pretty decent chance they'll go down really quickly as well. It was pretty obvious to me, like kind of BS easy, like NIO's gonna tank. And so I kind of realized this at about 1 o'clock after doing some other, you got to, make sure everything checks out, and also make sure your gut was right. But I run through all the DD and the due diligence, and it's a really solid trade. So I pretty much know that these guys are either going to tank the next day, which was today, and then just crash down to about 7.5, or they're gonna break 15, and they'll go away and I'll be wrong. But anyway, they were at like I think 13.6 or something, and I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is good shit. So like I get in the August 7th, which is like 2 week away puts, and also a lower position sizing in the I guess today's Friday, so the two DTE puts on Robinhood, and oh my god, okay, so I'm gonna focus more on the 2 week position because it was a little bit more reasonable. But just spoiler alert, man, the two DTE ones, or the one DTE ones that expired today, these things were insane. It was 400 to 600%. It was just amazing. But anyway, I get in this position. I'm like, this is really good shit. So I like text all my clients. I'm like, hey, I'm getting in this position. You should like get your ass in this position. And then just for fun, I text a couple of my friends, some guys I was working on with this project in school I just met, and they're like found my Instagram and my podcast, and they were like, oh, you trade stocks? I'm like, yeah. I'll let you know if I do anything big. And I very rarely will like tell friends and stuff about investments unless I'm like hardcore. This is pretty much obvious, which doesn't happen often. Like, little side thing here, is like most of the best investments you make, you don't like think that they're gonna be your best investments when you make them. I remember early on, like my first long-term portfolio, one of the best performers was Carvana. The thing went up like 1,000% in straight stock. It was insane. Like when I bought it, I bought it as a day trade, and I freaking lost money on the day, and I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll just hold it because it's a decent stock, which you should never really do. It's a stupid thing to do. But I did it. I didn't think for a moment that it was going to be like an amazing investment, and it turned out to be one of the best investments in terms of equities that I've ever made. And it's the same thing. Recently had I think it's, if I'm thinking about the percentages here, it was like $100 to $4,000. I think it was like 2,000% in like 2 days on this Forex. I forget. I think it was GPP to JPY or something. And I had like 8 other trades at the same time going on. And I didn't think for a moment that one was going to be special, but it was. And so most of like your big trades that are like huge, they're not going to come usually, like in my experience, usually. And I'm not talking about long-term investments, like if you know that Tesla's a great company or Amazon's or whatever, right? But most of the trades, the active trades you make, the best ones aren't going to be the ones, at least in my experience, that you're like 100% sure on. They're going to be the ones that you put like a standard position size bet on, and it, or a double position size bet or whatever, and it just explodes. And so that was kind of what happened here with NEO. I got in yesterday, and then today they opened up down 8%, and now they're down 14-16% in 1 day, which is huge. The options, the 2 week ones, 150% easy, and then the really close to expiration ones, I mean, it's insane. You're looking at 6x on the 2 week ones. I think this momentum will carry through. You'll easily get to 400%. And it's just really cool. But what's interesting is, like, I have these clients, right? And some of them don't get my text until the market closes. And then I'm like, dude, you're screwed. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You can't, it's like sucks, man. And then I was sending this also to a couple of my friends just for fun. And there was a bunch of them that just, like, didn't do shit about it. Like, they didn't make the trade. And what's interesting is, like, I very rarely test people. So when I do test people, it's usually like good shit. What's interesting is, like, you have an option, and when life kind of presents opportunities to you, and you can either like embrace the opportunity and do it, or then there are 2 other paths you can go down. The first path is not being physically able to do whatever it is. So you don't actually physically have money in a brokerage account that you can invest. And that's kind of something you have to deal with on your own. But the other one is something you can deal with not externally but internally, and that's having the faith and the belief in yourself to take advantage of those opportunities and pounce on them. And that was where I saw people struggling, and that's what sucks about trying to kind of advise without these licenses is like, if I can't take someone's money and actually make that trade at a wit's notice because I know that it's going to be awesome, And I'm relying instead on saying, hey, do this, and then I have to rely on a human being actually doing that, which is hard, right? Because I know that it's an awesome trade, but for someone else it's like, well, what do I have to base this on, right? And for someone else it's like, maybe I don't want to do this, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna just forget about it, see what happens tomorrow. When I know that it's awesome, but like someone else maybe not so much, right? And so that's why it's just way easier to do asset management when you actually kind of have the assets, have the money or whatever. And then like I was talking about earlier in terms of my long-term goals, having those financial regulation licenses are, I mean, it's like, it's literally the foundation of a house. It's like you need to have that, or at least I need to have that, to do kind of what I want to do in the decentralized asset management space. Anyway, it's not a big deal. It's like a $60. You just take the test. It's not a big deal. But what's interesting and what I want to talk about, what I want to focus on, it was not about Neo, but it's instead about like creating false roadblocks in your objectives. Because I've known for a very long time that I need to get these licenses, and you get them once and you're basically done forever. You don't have to renew it or anything. It's not like a law. At least I'm pretty sure you don't. I hope you don't. I don't think you do. But I'd never really pounced on the opportunity to do it. All you have to do is be 18 apparently, and that's the only requirement. But along the way, I'd always make up these excuses, at least after I turned 18. It was like, oh, I have to finish college. You need a college degree to do this. Or, oh, I have to actually, that was probably the biggest excuse, is I would always like tell myself that I had to finish college before I could take this exam and get this licensing and actually go out and start, using it to kind of do what I want to do in the decentralized asset management space. And it was just this excuse that I would make for myself to not want to do it. And I remember, when I first started investing a long, long time ago, I was always kind of like partial to stocks, right? And I wouldn't try other investments. I wouldn't really try options. I wouldn't try futures. I wouldn't try Forex. My God, I would never have tried Forex. It was insane. I would never even think of it a couple years ago. And I would make these excuses based off of like these false beliefs I had, where it was like, oh, it's not a good market, or you have to use leverage, or you have to use margin, or you can lose more than your account, and stuff like that. These excuses I would make up for myself of why focusing here on Forex, like why it would be a terrible thing to do. And I guess some of that fear was probably like okay, because you kind of have to develop the skills to trade before you get into highly leveraged 1000x Forex specifically is what I'm talking about. When you're getting into those highly leveraged markets, you need to know your shit. So it's probably better than worse that I spent years and years and years getting experience before I moved into it. But there's no doubt in my mind, there would be like many more zeros on my net worth if I had just gotten into it a couple of years earlier. And I didn't. And the reason why is because I made excuses for myself. So the message today is to stop making excuses for yourself, for things that, like, you should do, or, that would be like really good for you to do. But you don't jump on it, you don't try it. And what's interesting is to start to actually find ways to make what you need to happen. So for the Series 7 example, you have to get a FINRA registered broker-dealer or securities or whatever. You have to get a firm to kind of sponsor you for the test. And it's a pretty hefty sum. I have my own company, but I don't really want to pay, at least not yet, to get a FINRA registered firm. It's a pretty good chunk of change. So like, it took 2 phone calls to get to a broker dealer and say, hey, will you sponsor me? And it's like not a big deal. It's like you register online and it's, you're done. And that's a process I could have easily done, a year ago. But I didn't, because I had excuses for myself. Could have easily gotten into Forex a while ago, but I didn't, because I made excuses for myself. So my message for you is to just cut those excuses for yourself and find a way to, obviously safely do whatever you're doing. Don't just jump into highly leveraged investments without knowing what the hell you're doing. It's a good way to lose a lot of money. And there's obviously a path you go through with investing, but I'm talking just holistically, like with accounts. I remember I spent literally a month setting up a Forex account, just because along the way I would keep making up excuses for why I couldn't do it, and it was just this negative voice. It's like bad stuff. So stop feeding yourself those negative excuses and just figure out the process you need to go through, and the journey you want to take to get to the results that you want to kind of facilitate and create in your life. So really, really cool stuff today, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and have an awesome day. Bye. Want more stock market secrets? If so, go get your free copy of my best-selling book, 9 to Noon. You can get your free copy plus $11,176 of unannounced bonuses it took me years to uncover, completely for free at 9tanoonsecrets.com. Inside 9 to Noon, you'll find the top 38 secrets you can use to double your portfolio every 2 years and make upwards of 10% per trade daily.